Hi, this is Sifu Slim, and I'm here to bring on a discussion about inflammation. I've got Dr. Alex Concepcion, chiropractor and wellness person in Kaneohe, Oahu, and I want to mention the idea of inflammation. So, a long time ago, when I was in high school, I used to think inflammation came from things like headache. Inflammation was something that I did to my body. Okay, that made sense. And then when I have a sprained ankle, it's obvious it grows 30 to 50% in size. You can see the inflammation from hitting it with trauma, twisting your ankle. You get a bump on your head, which happens to a lot of people my height. I'm not extremely tall, but I hit my head more than I care to admit on stairways. You know, when you're going down one and they have the other one going up and you hit that, and then you get a bump on your head. So you see the relationship between trauma and then the headache, stress, but along the way, I learned in my 30s about chiropractics, and when you're out of alignment, that can result in being inflamed in a certain area. And when you have what the chiropractors might call inhibitions, and what's the other classic word?
Compensation.
Yeah, not just compensation, but when you do an adjustment, you're looking for that word that only chiropractors. Subluxations.
Subluxations, yes.
There we go. And so I'm going to bring in Dr. Alex to tell us a little bit about how he treats inflammation, what it is, and is that the only reason we have pain? Because sometimes I've gone into a chiropractor and I said, is my subscapularis inflamed? He said, no, you've got a neuromuscular thing going on. It's not an inflammation thing. So there's consistently learning that when you visit someone who's a specialist in a certain area, that if you're open to it and you want to learn, then you have to take notes and look things up, because this is what these people have done for years at their college level courses. So Alex, what can you tell us about inflammation? What is it?
Well, anything with an itis is inflammation. So whatever your doctor diagnoses you with. Laryngitis, tinnitus, bronchitis, sinusitis, any itis.
Tissues and getting filled with fluid, is that inflammation?
That's right. That's right. It's the pressures and inflammation. So inflammation is basically a natural response to the body to injury. Okay, it is a walling off of an injured area. Okay,
which could slow down the blood flow of like a snake bite back to your heart and brain.
Exactly, exactly, and also debris, because even if you have an injured tissue, right, you've got burst capillaries, broken down tissues and proteins and all that kinds of stuff, that then the body walls off so that your immune system can come on in, clean it up, and then allow for the time to heal. Okay, so inflammation in and of itself is not a bad thing. It's how we heal. It's how
our muscles grow, correct?
And that's how our muscles grow, exactly. And like any good stress, it causes growth. Problem is when it goes unchecked. Okay, it's like a forest fire
back down.
Exactly, exactly. So let's first talk about how the medical profession
handles inflammation.
Okay.
And in our work, in our desk, I've been telling people for years, when they look at me doing acupressure with a long staff out in a park, and I'm wedging that into my glutes, to the untrained eye, the uncultured eye, that looks very strange. But to me, it's strange that if you go into most people's office and most people's medicine cabinet, they will have some NSAIDs, which are anti-inflammatories, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory D. I forget the
drugs.
Drugs, there we go. And so they all have that, and to me, I know what that could do to your insides, and will do, if, guaranteed, if you do it for a long enough duration. So they have that, and I think that's strange and weird, but some people might look at what I do, where it's the natural, the elbow or the stick or the chiropractic adjustment. They may look at that as strange.
So, yeah. So, in the end, like you were saying, NSAIDs, which is sort of the go-to for that type of problem. Okay.
It went from aspirin then to NSAIDs.
Things like Celebrex and
Naproxen, Ibuprofen,
right, all that
Advil,
stuff. Yeah,
Acetaminophen,
which is actually one of the leading causes of drug death, believe it or not.
Acetaminophen is,
yes.
Yeah, drug death, and it's one of those getting treated by yourself at home or getting treated in the hospital. There's a problem with acetaminophen. Yeah.
which I'm sure to many viewers sounds very strange, because, you know, when you first hear that, if you're not, you know, hip to more alternative or natural methods, you're going to hear that and go like, what? That's, you know, BS, because you're so used to thinking of that. But
didn't
you
the
know,
Food and Drug Administration approve it? It's
Yeah.
got to be okay.
Yeah, so, but it's true. It's true. And basically what they're trying to do with that is that there are certain chemicals in your blood that control how much inflammation gets out. They're called prostaglandins. There's a type 1, there's a type 2, and I'm not a biochemist, so there's plenty. So it blocks a certain one that's sort of key in that inflammatory response and creating inflammation, the conditions for inflammation. Fortunately, it also blocks the stuff that creates your stomach acid, protects your stomach lining, and other things, and also makes your liver have to deal with it and your kidneys. Okay.
So it's not just the pill that's creating the chance for holes in your stomach lining. It's actually the process that's being stopped that allows your body to keep up what its normal processes are to protect the layers of the stomach.
Right. So that's one approach. The problem with that, besides doing what Henry's talking about, is that ultimately, if you're having joint issues and joint deterioration, that doesn't do anything to the joint deterioration. Okay, it just slows down the inflammation. Okay, slows down your immune response to it. So ultimately, it's just going to keep going instead of addressing the root cause of what's happening with you, which the older you get is complicated by faulty diets, lack of motion, okay, and then locked up joints. Okay. So when someone comes to see me, the biggest thing we need to do is first identify the structural problems, okay, through my particular analysis, which is called the Corin-specific technique. And once we start working with that, getting the person in more pain relief, then they're more open to doing things to change in the long run. So there's also many wonderful things that you can take that are more natural. Curcumin is a fantastic product. We have a particular product here called Curafen, which is a combination of curcumin, boswellia extract, nattokinase, and DCGA. But ultimately, what the wonderful thing is, it's working on not only the same chemical pathways that things like Acetaminophen, things like Celebrex do, but it also does not interfere with the stomach issues and actually helps the liver and the kidneys. And it's an herb, for example, turmeric and frankincense, that have been used for probably 1,000 years, if not longer.
Frankincense goes back to BC.
Yeah, and these are fantastic, and they work, studies have shown they work as well, if not better, than these non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs.
With scientific testing, with double-blind placebo testing, you can read about that. If you don't believe us, go online and look up research studies, recent research studies on natural anti-inflammatories, natural healing products. And you can see that one of the reasons we're here is because the people who are hunter-gatherers for millions of years knew what they were doing. I mean, they lasted through ice ages, drought, famine, heat waves, eclipses, plagues, much stronger animal, kings of the forest coming after them. So they had to live through that. And how did they do it? Well, it wasn't through not knowing how to live off with nature and in harmony with nature. And so what I've done is I've gone consistently throughout my life back to nature, trying to get more tribal as the years went by. And so I see the latest craze is the Red Bull high energy drinks. They don't give you energy. They give you caffeine, which is a drug, and sugar, which is a sedative, and they combine that when many times there's coloring in there, and your body has this response where it says, I got to get this out of my system, so I'm going to fire up the system, use the caffeine, and get this stuff out of my system. And so what happens when they should take the the sirens that go after the people promoting this, and or the people using it and taking them to the hospital in the ambulance, because it's crazy. It's really crazy to do that to yourself. So what I've done, the natural approach, it's not easy to cut curcumin every few hours, turmeric root, and sprinkle ginger and cinnamon, and I've got some other things in here, parsley flakes. And so this is a concoction with filtered water, reverse osmosis water, in a glass jar, so there's no leaching of metals or of plastics. And I put those concoctions in here, slice them up. And turmeric is a pretty strong herb to taste, but after it's been in here for a day or two, I just chew it, and that goes into my system. And before that, it's just serving as like a tea base. And so I've got 2 of those, and that's what I'm drinking per day, and I can shake them up. And actually, I also put powder in here, so I grind, pepper. I grind pepper with a pepper grinder, and I put that in here, and that allows for some of these things to be absorbed better, and pepper does other wonderful things as well. So what do you think of how strange it is for people that see me? What are you drinking over there?
You know, Henry, I'm sure for you, you somehow pull it off.
I pull it off, and when people say, what is that? And some people say, is that pickle juice? And I don't know why they would think I'd be drinking pickle juice, but I'm not opposed to drinking pickle juice, but it is hard on the anatomy of the teeth, the enamel, etc. But once I tell them what these things are, and I say, would you prefer to drink Red Bull knowing what I told you about Red Bull and caffeine, or would you prefer to drink this? And they say, I prefer to drink this. And then when it comes down to preparing this in the morning, it's not part of their normal living protocol. So that's the difference. You have to adapt. It's just like doing push-ups. You have to make something part of your ordinary program in order to do it. So I do this without thinking every morning. And to me, it's no big deal.
Nice. Right on. So, yeah, so for the most part, that's really inflammation is a big issue. One of the ways that people can simply help themselves start to get better as far as like systemic inflammation, which everybody's inflammatory response is just a bit higher. That's why you're doing all these things to kind of help bring it down. But getting your fatty acid balance correct. Most people unknowingly have too much omega-6 in their diet because we've been kind of fed a lot of hogwash about processed vegetable oils, like the big ones you all probably use, canola oil, safflower oil, all these oils that are also used in culinary senses because they don't have much taste, so they're very easy to work with. But unfortunately, when you have too much omega-6 to omega-3, you start going into that inflammatory response mode. So one simple way is like, I'm a big fan of avocado oil, macadamia nut oil used for cooking, coconut oil is fantastic. Going back to lard, tallow, duck fat.
Yeah, olive oil, people think it's great. Well, it might be great on your salads if it's good quality oil, but cooking with olive oil is a no-no. Once it gets over a certain temperature, then it changes the biochemistry or the chemistry of it, and then it's no longer a normal thing for our body to digest and process. So that's a problem also, using even a great thing like olive oil the incorrect way.
Yeah. So like, I'm from a Latin descent, so a lot of our food uses olive oil, and traditionally,
Get the pan hot.
yeah, and then you put it in there and then you use the olive oil. So what I've been doing lately in that sense, like when I make a big pot of like black beans, frijoles, I just put the olive oil at the end and then mix it in, once the temperature's low. That's how I kind of go about it. So there's ways, there's workarounds with that, but definitely don't stay away from a good, olive oil. You'd be surprised of what a good olive oil is. No one would think like the Kirkland brand at Costco is actually a good brand of olive oil.
Oh, you read the reports?
Yeah, I've read the reports on the olive oil, and which is amazing. So, there's a lot of times you don't have to be expensive. A lot of times people, when they hear the word organic, sometimes can think it's shishi or things like that. So it's not really about organic, it's just about eating good quality food. And some things don't have to be organic. For example, avocados don't need to be because the pesticides can't get through that skin.